Pioneers are explorers. Pioneers are innovators. Pioneers are leaders. We are Marietta College. We are pioneers. Find out how you can become a PIO at www.marietta.edu.
Investigating the mystery of the spontaneous aquarium collapse.
And a deer that went noodles in Wisconsin.
We'll have these stories and more. News Center 15 starts now. Good afternoon and welcome to Thursday's edition of News Center 15. I'm Evie Gravlin.
And I'm Morgan Alstrom.
Topping our news this afternoon. Across the globe in Berlin, prosecutors have been left with their heads spinning like a globe after nearly a year of investigation into the sudden and spectacular collapse of the Aquadome Aquarium last December has left them with no answers. The Aquadome Aquarium has housed in a hotel lobby in the center of Berlin. It held hundreds of thousands of gallons of water and housed at least 1,500 fish at the time of the collapse. The aquarium burst early in the morning on December 16th, unleashing a full 1 million liters of tank water into the hotel, which further burst out of the hotel onto the street. The human damage was minimal, with only 2 people getting minor injuries, but nearly all of the 1,500 fish that called the aquarium home were lost in the collapse. The cause of the collapse could not be determined upon initial investigation, and there was suspicion of human tampering, leading prosecutors to spend the last year investigating the incident. However, over the course of this extensive investigation, the prosecutors have been unable to pinpoint a specific cause beyond speculative theories of faculty engineering due to this lack of success. The prosecutors have dropped the investigation.
It could be said that patrons of the Noodles and Company in Beloit, Wisconsin got $1 more than the food they paid for on Tuesday. These diners most likely expected nothing more than a simple lunch when they went to Noodles and Company, but there was definitely more than just noodles on the menu for their afternoon. The dining area was fully seated with the unsuspecting customers when a deer suddenly came crashing through the front window of the restaurant straight in the middle of the lunch rush. The intrusion sent the diners into something of a panic, and they scattered in attempts to get out the path of this likely equally confused buck and his horns. The deer explored the dining area and ventured into the kitchen, where an employee was able to open the back door for him to make his way back outside. There was no injury or harm done by the deer's surprise visit, besides the window, of course. The restaurant received a deep clean before reopening, and they even offered a $2 mac and cheese the next day to commemorate that unique experience.
Hey, I wonder what the weather looks like today.
Here to provide first look at our current condition is Landon.
Well, for a good chunk of the middle of the week, we've been experiencing relatively warm temperatures, warmer than normal for the month of October, and we've got a high of about 62 degrees. We got a low UV index of 2 and a good air quality index rates 38 and a very low pollen count, although that should be rising in the next few days, and I'll tell you why in a moment. The winds will be running around the north about roughly 4 miles per hour with a relatively high humidity of 61%. That will unfortunately be increasing, and I'll tell you what I mean by unfortunately a bit later on. And of course, we've had our sunrise today at 7:42, and the sun should be setting about 2 after 6:30 tonight. Now, I say it's a bit unfortunate the humidity will be rising, because it looks like as we get closer and closer to the weekend, we'll be getting some rainy conditions, and that is unfortunate for a certain group of people we'll be seeing around our neighborhood this weekend. But I'll talk to you about that in more detail when I return later on for the 5-day forecast. So until then, back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Landon. A group of Floridians plans to host competitions themed after the collective antics of the beer-loving, gator-possessing, rap sheet record-breaking, mullet-wearing social media phenomenon known as Florida Man. Organizers of Florida Man Games describe the competition as the most insane athletic showdown on Earth. 2 former stars of the television show American Gladiators have agreed to serve as referees. The games are planned to poke fun at Florida's reputation for producing news stories involving guns, drugs, alcohol, reptiles, and some combination of force. Some of the contests include the evading arrest obstacle course, where contestants jump over fences and run through yards while being chased by real police officers. The Category 5 cash grab, where contestants try to grab as much money as possible in a wine-blowing booth. The beer belly wrestling general admissions tickets are currently going for $45. The creator of these Florida Man games, Pete Malfi, said that it's going to be a wild day of mud games and Florida-style obstacle courses. It's going to be really an opportunity to live that Florida Man life for a day.
Superfog in New Orleans is to blame for the 168-car pileup along a 1-mile stretch of the Louisiana interstate. The combination of marsh fire, smoke, and dense fog caused a mass chain of crashes Monday morning. Victims of the pileup reported hearing the metal clanking of car after car backing up in layer after layer of collisions. At least 63 individuals were injured in the crash, ranging from minor to critical injuries. Witnesses and victims of the pileup spoke of a sense of camaraderie as everyone emerged from the wreckage and worked together to respond to injuries and other crises. As of Tuesday evening, the fatality count has risen to 8 lives lost. The number of deaths may continue to rise due to the injuries of the victims that are still being treated.
Coming up, a mass shooter on the run in Maine.
And a pilot gone rogue.
We'll have these stories and more. Stay with us.
Hey, this is Kevin Love from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Right now, many of us feel anxious. Mindfulness can help you ease those feelings. My nonprofit is partnering with Headspace to offer free content to help you stress less. Head to kevinlovefund.org/headspace.
Here's to the straggly ones. The first ones. Hey, I look good with this ones. The black, brown, red, and gray ones. The itchy ones. The ones grown by Dad. The ones grown for Dad. The I nearly didn't do it this year ones, and the absolutely filthy ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations, and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Learn more at Movember.com.
The community of Lewiston, Maine was faced with trauma and travesty yesterday as they experienced 2 separate mass shootings in the same day. A restaurant and a bowling alley just 4 miles apart from each other were both targeted and devastated in these episodes of gun violence. Between these 2 incidents, at least 16 victims have died so far, with more resulting fatalities anticipated, and dozens of other wounded victims. In both instances, a visibly armed man entered the building and immediately opened fire. One bowling victim described how he heard the shots and thought the first one was a balloon popping before he turned and saw the shooter's weapon instead. The shooter fled the scene and was not positively identified beforehand, but a police bulletin bulletin labeled firearms instructor Robert Card as a person of interest in bowling alley attack. The location and confirmed identity of the shooter remain unknown, leaving the community of Lewiston in a state of uncertainty and fear. City police are putting all possible efforts into securing the safety of the community following these shootings.
Jury selection continues in the federal trial of the captain of a scuba dive boat which caught fire in 2019. Captain Jerry Boylan has been charged with one count of misconduct or neglect of ship officer. If convicted, he faces 10 years behind bars. Boylan has pleaded not guilty and denies any wrongdoing. Opening statements are set to begin the day after the jury is chosen. The boat fire killed 34 and became the deadliest maritime disaster in recent U.S. history. The vessel was on a 3-day excursion and had anchored off the Channel Islands for the final day of this excursion on Labor Day of 2019. The boat caught fire before dawn on the fatal Labor Day morning and ultimately sank while still anchored less than 100 feet from shore. An official cause of the fire has not been determined, but the National Transportation Safety Board is blaming Captain Boylan for the tragedy due to his failure to post a night watchman. The board argues that a night watchman may have been able to prevent the fire from spreading and quickly undetected. Because of how quickly the fire spread undetected, 33 passengers and 1 crew member were trapped below deck. The Coast Guard has since enacted new congressional mandated regulations regarding fire detection systems, extinguishers, and escape routes to prevent such a tragedy from repeating itself.
Accusations are flying as Alaska Airlines pilot Joseph David Emerson is alleged to have tried to shut down the engine of an 80-passenger jet mid-flight. Emerson was off-duty and had tagged along on the flight in the cockpit jump seat, giving him the opportunity to attempt this feat. Air traffic controllers were informed of the situation by one of the plane's actual pilots, where the crew restrained Emerson. The flight was meant to travel from Everett, Washington to San Francisco, California. Following this incident, the flight was instead diverted to Portland, Oregon, where Emerson was taken into custody. The 44-year-old man was held in custody Monday by the county sheriff's office on 83 state counts, each of reckless endangerment and attempt murder, of 1 state count of endangering an aircraft in reckless endangerment, and a federal count of interference with the flight crew. Emerson attended his arraignment Tuesday, where he pled not guilty to all charges.
Former President Trump is facing over 91 felony charges across multiple trials in New York, Florida, and Washington, D.C. Most recently, Trump was fined $10,000 by Judge Arthur Engoron, who was overseeing this New York civil fraud trial. The fine was issued as a penalty for Trump's violation of a gag order put forth by Judge Engoron, which prohibits Trump from publicity harassment of or commentary on the court staff. The civil fraud lawsuit was brought against Trump by New York Attorney General Letitia James in 2022 and has only recently reached the court. This is a civil case, so while Trump is not facing any criminal charges or penalties, he is at risk of consequences to his finances and businesses. So far, the primary decision put forward by Judge Engoron so far has been a partial summary judgment ruling that Trump has been fraudulently inflating and misrepresenting his assets. This ruling also ordered the cancellation of 10 specific businesses' certificates. In doing so, Trump is no longer able to operate some of his New York properties moving forward. The trial will be focusing on determining the actions to take and financial penalties to distribute in response to this finding.
When we return, we'll hear from Johanna James on recent developments in the election interference case Trump is also currently facing in Georgia.
And we'll talk about the newly appointed Speaker of the House.
And this dark and spooky weekend could be in danger of dampering the trick-or-treaters' time with heavy rain. Tune in for all this and more of the extended forecast after the break.
Where are we?
We are at Marietta College.
This is where we live at Marietta College.
When kids need medical care, they face life-changing experiences. They miss out on the things that make being a kid fun. Starlight Children's Foundation programs entertain and inspire hospitalized kids. Learn more at starlight.org.
Marietta, a place some people call home.
A place of athletes.
A place of discovery.
A place for the future.
Your plan.
Your future.
Go Pios.
Attorney Jenna Ellis is the fourth in a line of 19 defendants to plead guilty in an ongoing trial investigating the Trump legal team's 2020 post-election challenges.
Johanna James has the story.
All of your fake news headlines are dancing around the merits of this case. And
I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse.
Jenna Ellis is one of 19 defendants indicted in the ongoing Georgia trial investigating former President Trump's alleged election interference. Among other incidents, the investigation of this case was triggered by a recorded phone call with Georgia's Secretary of State, during which Trump demanded that election investigators find votes to allow him to win the state.
Look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Jenna Ellis served as a legal advisor on former President Trump's re-election campaign starting in 2019. After Trump lost the 2020 election to Biden, Trump appointed Ellis to work alongside Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell to challenge and potentially overturn the election results. Within days of the November election, Trump's election challenge team called for a recount of votes specifically in Georgia, and again 2 weeks later. Both counts confirmed Biden's victory in the state. Ellis made the following statement in a public address between the two recounts.
All of your fake news headlines are trying to delegitimize what we are doing here. Let me be very clear that our objective is to make sure to preserve and protect election integrity.
The charges against Ellis pointed to this public address as the beginning of her involvement in the election interference, arguing that the statements made by Ellis and the other lawyers at this press conference gave false evidence and made false accusations regarding election fraud. Ellis accepted a plea deal on Tuesday and pled guilty to the felony charge of aiding and abetting these false statements. Through this plea deal, she will be serving 5 years probation with mandatory community service, as well as writing an apology letter, paying $5,000 in restitution to the state of Georgia, and maintaining truthfulness in ongoing testimony. Ellis gave the following reflection during her hearing.
What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges.
Moving from previous tenants of the Oval Office to current residents of the House of Representatives, the vacancy for Speaker of the House has finally been filled. Previous Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, was ousted from his position in early October. In the 3 weeks since McCarthy's removal, the House has been in a crisis of polarization over electing a new Speaker of the House. Neither party can agree to the type of Speaker desired by the opposing party, so none of the representatives considered for the position have been able to secure enough votes across party lines to achieve the majority vote required to be approved.
This state of crisis came to a close yesterday when Republican Louisiana House Representative Mike Johnson met the majority vote requirement with 220 affirmative votes of the 432 representatives present. John is a lesser-known House member, but his colleagues have described him positively as a quiet force and a steady-handed public servant. Representative Elise Steifank described Johnson as a friend to all and enemy to none when nominating for him the vote. Republican conference members believe he may be able to provide the COP a fresh start and are hopeful that he may be able to lead their conference away from the internal division where it has been present for a decade now. In entertainment news, Star Wars fans, you missed your chance to own a piece of history as an X-Wing filming model goes for big bucks at auction. Michael Caine retires from acting while have the latest on Navajo Police Class 57.
Zach has all this with today's Hollywood Minute.
Today's entertainment news ranges from the Death Star to the Navajo Nation. A Star Wars X-Wing filming model has sold at auction for more than $3.1 million. The original 20-inch Star Wars fighter model, one of just 4 built for close-ups and used in the final battle scenes, was discovered in a box in the model maker's garage. After having been thought lost for decades, Heritage Auction calls it the pinnacle of Star Wars artifacts to ever reach the market. In other news, actor Michael Caine has confirmed his retirement. The 2-time Oscar winner made the announcement on BBC Radio 4's Best of Today podcast. The 9-year-old actor says The Great Escaper, which came this month, wraps up his acting career, which began on the stage in the early 1950s. The Navajo Nation is the largest tribe in the United States, taking up 27,000 square miles that officers have to patrol. A tough job and lots of pressure shown to Navajo Police, Class 57. The docu-series follows 28 recruits working to protect and serve their community amid systematic issues affecting their nation. Navajo Police, Class 57 is now running on HBO. With your Hollywood Minute, I'm Zach Wurstel. Now, back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Zach. Now we'll head to Landon for a look at our extended forecast.
How does it look out there, Landon?
Well, in our neck of the woods, it looks relatively calm, but as you can see here over the next few days, we're going to be experiencing another round of rain coming towards us, being pushed in our direction by this cold front that's coming from the northwest region of the country alongside the northern border of the country. So as you can see, we're not dealing with much today, but that's going to change very shortly as we move on into the 5-day forecast. Tomorrow, we'll end the week with a high of 72 and relatively cloudy conditions, so it's going to take a little bit of time for the rain to get here. But unfortunately, when it does arrive on Saturday with also an expected high of 72, that's going to be putting a bit of a damper on the trick-or-treat route, because Saturday is going to be when they go out on that route in Marietta, and that rain will be continuing on, cooling down the region on Sunday with a high of 69, and that will continue as we begin the work week with an even cooler temperature of an expected high of 63, and then stabling off to an even cooler temperature as the rain finally ends and dissipates on Tuesday with partly cloudy conditions. So on the one hand, Halloween is gonna be relatively cool, but if you're going out trick-or-treating, make sure you bring some ponchos and umbrellas. Otherwise, you get very wet and soggy candy. But we'll talk about that later on at the end of the program. Until then, back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Landon. When we come back, Grant and Addison will join us with an update from the world of sports.
See you in a few.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course.
He's reaching, but he pushes it away. He's approaching a plate of iced cookies. He blows right by him.
Oh, the fridge.
Looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle.
Now he's just got to get out of there.
Look what dropped from the sky.
Don't do it, Dennis. That's the way you execute a Midnight Snack Run.
Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
And now we're back with Grant and Addison for a look at sports.
What's been happening in the world of sports?
We got the rundown right now. Starting with a look at the world of football, the third-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes will be going on the road this Saturday as they take on the Wisconsin Badgers at Camp Randall Stadium. Ohio State will be led by arguably one of the best wide receivers in the nation, Marvin Harrison Jr. Harrison was named Big Ten Co-Offensive Player of the Week for totaling 111 catches for 162 yards in the win against Penn State. Marvin will look to add to his already impressive stats when Ohio State faces Wisconsin this Saturday. The kickoff is set for 7:30 p.m. on NBC. Moving over to Pioneer Volleyball, Marietta traveled to Westerville for a game with the Audubon Cardinals. The Pios were coming off a 3-game winning streak and had been aiming for a 4th win to add to that streak. Unfortunately, Marietta lost their winning streak and all 3 sets of the Cardinals' dominant defense in the Audubon game. The Pioneers will have a chance to get their winning streak going again when they host Ohio Northern on Marietta Field this Saturday. The Pios volleyball team is now sitting 12-11 overall, holding a 3rd in the OAC standings.
Venturing across the globe now to look at biking, the 2024 Tour de France will be starting in Italy for the first time ever, with a stage that includes over 2.2 miles of climbing. The race kicks off in Florence, Italy next year on June 29th. High mountains will be on the schedule as early as the 4th day of this endurance race, which includes 2 individual time trials and 4 summit finishes. There are a total of 7 mountain stages across 4 total mountain ranges. Riders will cross the Alps during stage 4 of the tour, where they will tackle the 1.6-mile Col du Gélibert. This is just a taste of what's to come, since the total vertical gain is 32.45 miles. The tour will reach its finale on the French Riviera, leaving Paris for the first time since 1905 due to a clash with the Olympics. The race will conclude in the Nice, France on July 21st. That's all we have in the world of sports. I'm Addison.
Thank you, Grant and Addison. Thank you for joining us for our Thursday edition of WCMO TV and at noon 30 and 6:30. Thank you and have a great rest of your week.